that one cannot exist without the other. That's, the basis upon which this entire argument hinges. So is that true? Is that what atheists come to you and they say, yeah, but wouldn't they say to you, wouldn't they say to you it's impossible, or isn't it possible that objective moral values and duties exist even if God wasn't around?
Yes.
Don't they say that?
I thought, as I said, they would attack premise 2, but they don't. Instead, they tend to attack premise 1. But then I gave a defense of premise 1. I mean, it's not just assumed. I argued, for example, remember that the most plausible form of atheism is naturalism. Right. And naturalism says the only things that exist are the things that are required by our best scientific theories.
So do they ever come to you and say, well, you did mention that about like the troop of baboons that have their own rules and help them survive.
Right.
So what is the best argument for that? I mean, what is the best when someone says, well, couldn't baboons just have a group of objective moral values and duties that they have developed that help them survive, and if they didn't have those, then there wouldn't be any baboons?
Right. Now, see here, that's why I spent time defining what I mean by objective and subjective.
Yeah,
that's purely subjective. That is to say that moral values depend upon human beings sort of getting together and saying, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, and you develop this herd morality that will function well in the perpetuation of the species. But there's nothing really objective about that. It's just a sort of social convention, like going on the green and stopping on the red, or driving on the right instead of on the left.
So what defines objective? Is it not that objective is values that are commonly held by all humans on the
No. See, now that's why it's so important to define your terms. What you defined was universal. Right. You defined values are universal if they're held by everybody. But remember, my example of the Holocaust, if the Nazis had won World War II, so that everybody thought the Holocaust was really good, if the Holocaust was objectively bad, that wouldn't make any difference. It was still bad, even if everybody thought it was good.
What's the definition of objective?
Okay, objective, once again, is independent of what people's opinions think about it. And subjective is, it depends on people's opinions about it.
If everybody believes one thing, then how do we know it's wrong or right? Like if basically everybody in the world generally believes that it's probably a bad thing to kill other people.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, now that is...
Every major religion in the world believes that, pretty much. It doesn't always happen in the world that way, but even some of the central tenets of Islam, even though obviously with things that are going on in the world right now, that's not what's really happening in reality, but in Islam, they basically say, hey, it's wrong to kill other people. Most major religions believe that. So how do we know that that's right?
Okay, see, that's the knowledge question that Walter was raising again. How do we come to know objective moral values and duties? And this argument just doesn't address that. I'm not interested in that question today. That would be a question, to talk about in another class. What we're arguing here is for the objective reality of moral values and duties, and how we come to know them, well, that's a different question. As I say, I suspect as a Christian that God has written his moral law in our hearts and that divine revelation can assist us, but that's neither here nor there for this argument. I think we have time for another question. We ended 12, is that right? Okay.
Let me just say that if anybody has, we can go just a few more minutes, but if anybody has, I just want to take advantage of Dr. Craig being here. If anybody has maybe one of the questions that they're not related to this, but you've been chewing on, that you chew on as your kind of your sugar stick argument, you might want to bring it up here. I just want to give you that quick opportunity, as well as what we've been talking about here real quick.
Yes.
Dr. Craig, this premise right here,
what?
That also I'm just thinking in terms of, he mentioned Islam. This would still defend a Muslim's belief. I mean,
Muslim
whether or not we agree with their objective moral duties,
right?
But it's right.
The problem with Islam is not its moral theory.
Right.
If the Muslim thinks that our moral duties are constituted by God's commandments, I agree with it. I don't don't think he's got the wrong moral theory. His problem is he's got the wrong God.
Right, that's just another can of worms, but it
Right.
defends him as well.
Right. This is an argument not for Christianity, but for God as a personal, absolute good and command moral lawgiver, which would be common to Judaism, Islam, Christianity. So Muslim would be quite enthusiastic, I think, about this argument. And the stumbling block will be, I think, Jesus of Nazareth. It'll be elsewhere. Yes?
When you spent time together, did you go there with some of these issues that we're not addressing today on the radio program?
Well, we certainly talk quite a bit about Islam and Christianity, for example. We did 3 shows on that subject. I studied Islam as one of my side areas when I did my doctoral work in theology. And I never dreamt at the time I'd someday be speaking about it. But since 9/11, I've had some wonderful opportunities to debate Muslim theologians and apologists, as well as to talk on this topic. So we did deal with that and went into things about this argument as well.
When will these shows be aired?
We're going to get them on the web just as soon as we can. And believe me, you have to listen to them about 150 times.
No, they're not bad. They're not. They're going to scare people away.
No, really.
Yeah, you give it to
You may want to listen to it again and go over some fine points, just like it has been done here. You know, kind of tease some things that that makes sense, but let me make sure I understand it. I do this. I do that all the time. It doesn't take a lot of time.
And that's a great thing about a podcast as opposed to a radio broadcast. The site isn't up there, but it's reasonablefaith.org. And you click on the button that says podcast, and you'll find 2 podcasts there. One is my Sunday school class I teach in Atlanta at our church, and the other is the show that I do with Kevin called Reasonable Faith.
Can you give the name of the church?
Yeah, I teach at Johnson Ferry Baptist Church, which is a great Southern Baptist church just north of Atlanta. Brian Wright is our pastor.
Barrett Johnson is now on staff.
Yeah.
He left up there, so we got 2 peas in a pod.
Okay, well, I've really enjoyed being with you folks here today, and